What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. We got the family out here today taking the Cherokee on its first adventure. We're on the Sugar Creek Loop here in Oklahoma, and we finally got to one of the technical sections. We noticed that put in 4 low and the trans is not happy. Before we make it any further into this, I just checked and there's really no trans fluid on the dipstick. It might be time, before we get too far into this, just to try to turn it around and see how close we can make it to the main road, just in case we need to top it off with some fluids. Now, before we start off this video with today's adventure, we're gonna go back to the shop and show you some of the upgrades that we did to the Jeep to even be able to drive out here. Before we hit the road in the Cherokee and take it on its first family adventure, there's a few things that need to be addressed. So in the last video, we did a quick walk around and unfortunately found a few issues with the Cherokee. First one was the track bar. The tie rod end over on the frame side or the unibody side just had a little bit too much movement, and that was giving us a shimmy in the steering wheel. Not exactly death wobble, but it was coming pretty soon. Second, we had some pretty loud clunks underneath, which were the control arm joints just completely shot. So in order to fix those and make sure that we can make it through this trail safely, we're gonna hit a little overland route here in Oklahoma. And while it's nothing too challenging, I don't wanna have any issues out there when we're on the trail. So we're fixing that with a couple of upgrades, and I didn't wanna just get stock replacements. I wanted to upgrade to something that is going to allow us to reuse in the future once we possibly lift this and start doing more projects. So we have a set of lower adjustable control arms from Clayton Offroad and an adjustable track bar from Rough Country. So let's hop into the Jeep, start putting these parts in. Before we fully remove this bolt and separate the tie rod end, I'm gonna bring the Jeep back down on the ground. That way the axle doesn't swing left or right once we remove the track bar. I'm typically not one to recommend Rough Country parts, but in this case, they did a pretty good job with the track bar. Not only is it adjustable, but they also made the track bar a little bit beefier. So it's an 1.25" diameter steel tubing, 1/4 inch wall, and having the adjustability is always nice. So we are going to have to set this to the same length of the track bar we just pulled off. They do give us some recommended starting lengths, and of course, the taller your lift, the longer you're gonna have to adjust it. Now, one thing to note is that this is a left-hand thread, so might be difficult to remember that later on down the road when you're over here cranking your jam nut and it's not loosening, you're actually just tightening it. We're going to measure this out. You can either do that from center to center or throw a bolt between both of them and adjust them until they're the same length. And now we can hop back under and reinstall our new track bar. Now, a majority of the time, this bolt hole's not gonna line up just because something shifted when you removed the old track bar. All you have to do is have somebody turn the steering wheel until this bolt lines up. And finally, we're able to tighten everything up. One project down, one more to go. Swapping out the lower control arms. And actually, looks like we are gonna have to get some new bump stops. Free dog toy, come here. Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop one of these lower control arms off so we can see what kind of shape they're in. Before we even check out these control arms, looks like at some point there was a set of aftermarket control arm brackets welded on. These plates right here actually delete the factory cam system for alignment, which is notoriously bad for you know, messing up your alignment when you go off-road. So that is always a nice discovery. That is one last thing we're gonna have to do to this. The previous owner must have put these adjustable control arms in, and I have no idea what brand these are. The rubber bushing on the axle end actually looks fine, but the Johnny joint up on the adjustable side has seen better days. So we're gonna swap that out. I am a huge fan of the Clayton adjustable control arms. These are the Overland series, which use the gyro joints, which are a maintenance-free bushing that still offer a ton of flex, misalignment, and they really do kind of cut down on the amount of vibration that gets sent up to the chassis. It's the best of both worlds. It's like a hybrid between a rubber bushing and a Johnny joint or flex joint. So when it comes to control arms, on something like a daily driver, a weekend warrior, you know, on the race Jeep, we're not gonna run gyro joints, but on something like this in the Gladiator, it is perfect. So there are a few other things. We have an offset bushing here. The Cherokees and TJs at extreme flex it will hit our shock bracket right here. So what some people would do is cut this out, but with the Clayton arms, they already have that offset, so you don't even have to deal with that. Pretty much we're gonna set both of our lowers to the same length and install them pretty much just as easy as that. And then finally, we should have a nice tight steering and less clunky suspension going on. Let's get this installed. We're gonna wait to torque everything until the Jeep is on the ground. Unfortunately, there was still some clunking going on during our test drive, which means the upper control arms are probably shot as well. Now, I also noticed that our track bar is hitting the diff cover, and after a little more inspection, I realized that our axle is pushed too far forward. I installed our lower control arms to the same length of the ones we pulled off, and I went back and measured, and it turns out that whoever put those on set them at the incorrect length. They are way too long for no lift. So we're gonna have to pull the uppers off, pull the lowers off, set everything back to factory spec, get the axle centered where it needs to be so our diff cover doesn't hit the track bar and our axle isn't pushed too far forward. So ended up grabbing a set of upper control arms from Clayton and finally get rid of all this clunking going on. After the Jeep was all put back together, Cassie and I opened up Onyx Off-Road to find a nice adventure in the XJ. We found Sugar Creek Loop not too far away and decided it would be a perfect route for a test drive. It's an easy county road route through scenic parts of Oklahoma, originally mapped as part of the Oklahoma Backroad Discovery Route. Using Onyx, we were able to easily follow the 120-mile route and even make a few route changes to work with our timeline for the day. Like I've mentioned in other videos, Onyx is a fantastic way to plan your trip and get out and discover new trails. If you are interested, we do have a discount code which I'll put down below. Well, it seems like the first part of Sugar Creek Loop is definitely a little bit flat. We got a few nice little dips and turns throughout the valley right at the beginning once we went under the bridge, but then pretty quick it turned into a gravel road, but it's a nice pretty view. We have some scenery on both sides, some nice pieces of grass, nice and smooth road.
And the rolling hills.
The kids are happy. I think the further south we get throughout the loop, there are some water crossings. There are a few little hill climbs. Now this isn't an off-road route. It is more of a scenic route throughout Oklahoma.
I want one of those.
But it is crazy to think that there are people that live off this road way out here. And it seems like the county maintains this pretty well. Looks like it's been, I would hope so. It looks like it's been, you know, they ran something through here pretty recently, but I do see horse tracks. And this is a pretty popular trail for motorcycles and, what are they called? Dual sport bikes. Is there? Oh yeah. As you can tell, Definitely not an off-road trail. This is actually a road. We're passing houses. You can see a car just drove through here, but beautiful scenery throughout this road. Normally this creek is probably a little bit higher.
How is this fun?
So I guess there is a section of this route that takes us on the normal road. Looks like we're gonna hop on this road for a while until we get back onto the back roads. So what do we think of Sugar Creek Loop so far?
I think it's good.
It's very pretty, easy route. Now,
A lot of cows.
there are a lot of cows. Now for the next question, how is the Cherokee Jeep doing?
It's doing great.
It's doing great. Is it a cozy ride?
Yeah, the transmission's not happy.
And it felt like the transmission was starting to slip, wasn't too happy. And before we try to make it through this and make it too far in the trail, honestly, this might be a good spot to turn around, call it a day. We've had fun. We don't want to push the Cherokee too much on its first trail ride. So we had fun, didn't we? Did y'all want to run up there and check out that next thing?
Yeah.
Alrighty, go have fun. I'll look at the Jeep.
Stuck.
I just checked and there's really no trans fluid on the dipstick. Get her rolling. Now we're in neutral, going down the hill.
More crazy again.
Nope.
The whole adventure was not crazy at all.
We don't have trans fluid.
We are back in action. So Cassie's mom grabbed the Gladiator with a gallon of ATF, just enough to fill this up and get it movable again. When we get back to the shop, we'll take a look at what happened. But the upper control arm bolt over on the passenger side took out the transmission cooling line, and it just kind of pinched it, but there is a hole, so it's weeping out of that. Fortunately, we were able to drive out of the trail with the Cherokee, but we only made it a couple miles. Took the Gladiator back home and got the truck and trailer. There she is. Well, I brought a few more quarts of ATF. Should be just enough to drive this up on the trailer, bring it back home. So I'm gonna file this under the TRM folder, total rookie move. So both of our transmission cooling lines are smashed up there. And that's because we put this upper control arm bolt in the wrong way. It should go this way. These exposed threads at full bump just smashed into those lines and destroyed them. Luckily it didn't get the oil pan, but both of our transmission lines are gonna need to be replaced. I was planning on doing a transmission cooler anyways, and we're also gonna go ahead and swap over to soft AN line. So I have 20 feet of -6 stainless soft line. It's gonna be a lot easier to repair on the trail in the future if we ever have to. An assortment of -6 fittings, a little 10-row oil cooler from Mishimoto. It's not huge, but this should do the trick to help bring some of those trans temps down. And in order to convert our hard lines over to soft lines, there's a few fittings we need. We have some fittings that are gonna go on the transmission, which are a -6 to a 14 by 1.5 male metric fitting. These are gonna go right in the transmission. A -6 to 3/8 quick disconnect. This is going to go on the lower side of the radiator. And for the upper side of the radiator, we have a -6 to 5/8 by 18 inverted flare. I will throw all of this in the video description. And this is a quick and easy way to swap over to a full soft AN setup for your transmission cooling lines. Let's rip these old hard lines off and get to work. So I've got the cooler lines pulled off as well as the factory fittings. So these are a little quick disconnect style, and that's where these 14 by 1.5 6AN adapters are gonna come into play. So we're gonna screw both of these in to the transmission side, and this is where we can just screw on our 6AN fittings directly to the transmission. So earlier I mentioned that we were using this 5/8 by 18 inverted flare fitting for the top of the radiator, but I guess it's gonna depend on what year your Jeep is, because this brass fitting, normally there's a little insert in there and you can't remove this. I'm not gonna run a bunch of adapters in order to do this. So all I did was cut the factory hard line through a little flare in there, and we're just gonna use this as a barb fitting. We can go ahead and lift the Jeep back up, start making our line from the trans up to the factory cooler, and then out of the factory cooler on top, we're gonna run it to our new auxiliary cooler, which we're gonna mount below the radiator. And then from there, back to the trans. So it's not too hard. Hopefully, you know, if you've never messed with AN fittings, I've shown it in other videos, but you know, you're gonna take this tape off the end. We're gonna slide our bottom fitting on here, and we simply screw this tapered fitting into it, and it tightens it up and creates a AN fitting seal. Pretty nifty, not too hard to do. And yeah, we're gonna find a nice place to mount this. These stacked plate type coolers are very efficient. And just like that, our new transmission cooling lines are out of the way, converted to -6, and we even got a new transmission cooler in there. Now, I know a few people will say I should have put it in front of the grill. Yes, that would give us more airflow, but I like the stack plate design, and really that's the only place to put it. Plus, I don't want to transfer that heat to the radiator. It's better than nothing, much better than stock, and I'm happy knowing the cooling lines are out of the way and much easier to repair on the trail if needed. So all we have left to do is fill this up with trans fluid, check for leaks, and call it good. We've done a lot in this video. We got the control arms in, the track bar, went and explored a new area, and now we have a transmission cooler and new lines. Thanks for watching, guys. Like always, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'm kind of looking at the Cherokee here, sitting up on the lift like that, and that looks pretty good. So who knows, maybe we have a lift kit coming for this soon, but we have a lot of other projects in store. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.